All across the country, working people, of course, hit hard by the effects of food inflation. Well, not just food inflation,
everything,
all sorts of inflation.
Yeah. The situation looks dire, but what would a Labour government do? This is what we've been asking all morning. Could a different government make any better of this?
Well, let's talk to Seema Malhotra, who's the Shadow Minister for Small Business, Consumers and the Labour Market. Very good to see you this morning. Let's look at the bigger picture here to begin with, should we? The inflation is problematic. It's causing huge problems across the mortgage market. What would a Labour government do that is any different to what the Tories are doing at the moment?
Well, the first thing we would do is want to see a long-term plan for the economy that actually was accompanied by really good, strong governance, political stability, because political stability really does help with economic stability as well. And what we've seen with the chaos of the Conservatives infighting and the steady decline of our economy over 13 years is that we've reduced our resilience, and that is now impacting the families across the country, our businesses across the country, and it's seeing Britain hit harder than other countries. Why is it that food inflation is higher than France, than Germany, than Italy, than Spain, than the US? And why is it time and time again we're seeing British people hit harder than people in other countries?
Well, I mean, look, food inflation is because we import loads of it from Europe.
There are other reasons as well for what we're seeing, whether that is higher energy bills, which is affecting industry as well as our families, or it could be supply chain issues. And these are issues that were weak areas for us in terms of our resilience, even before the pandemic, even before the invasion of Ukraine. And parliamentarians have been telling the government that the lack of plans that they have are going to result in a weakening of our economic resilience. That is what we are seeing now. And that's why, with the plans that Labour is announcing for our economy nationally, to have us be the fastest growing in the G7, to make sure that we've got become a clean energy superpower, that would bring down bills for the long term. We also need measures to support our smaller businesses and our high streets. That's why the research that we've published today that shows very worryingly that 1 in 6 hospitality firms are now cutting back on staff. Companies like those that I've seen in Swindon who are saying that they have to close at 2 o'clock. They have to close their cafe because they can't afford to keep the staff on. These are things we have to tackle, and our plan is that we try and see the cost of doing business come down as well, whether that's through making sure that we cut business rates for those businesses, or that we see us tackling late payments and making sure that as much more action is taken against companies that don't pay those smaller businesses. The FSB estimate that up to 50,000 businesses a year could go out of business, not because they didn't earn those revenues, but because they haven't been paid for months. But also to make sure that we see plans for energy resilience for our smaller businesses through some of the vouchers and grants that we've also announced, and that we have a plan for keeping our high street safe. Look, what we want to see is our thriving local economies. And if we don't tackle those issues, including high street safety, with more police that we need to see back on our streets, then we won't see people having the confidence to shop as things improve. We won't see ways in which those prices are kept down vitally, and we won't see ways in which businesses have the confidence to keep their businesses open and make sure they've got the resilience for the long term.
Nevertheless, we are living at the moment in a time of inflation. People talk about the fact that a recession is just round the corner, and the Bank of England has just put up interest rates. What do you think of that?
I think that this reflects the Conservatives not having a plan for our economy. Look, they failed to secure our economy. They're failing families. They're failing businesses. We are seeing that time and time again. This isn't something that's come out of nowhere. If you look over the last few years, whether it's been the HGV crisis, the petrol crisis, the supply chain crisis, even our preparedness for the pandemic, all of these are demonstrations of a lack of planning on behalf of this government that has taken actions for the short term and then when a crisis comes, responds with sticking plaster politics. We need to see an end to this lurching from crisis to crisis. That's why I believe it's so important that the government starts to act now with a proper plan for our economy. Look, it's not just me that's also criticised the government for not having even an industrial strategy, which is the very thing that enables businesses to have that confidence to invest, to bring down those energy prices by investing in our energy security, to bring down our food prices by making sure that there is lower energy bills, but also resilience in our food economy too. These are decisions that the government need to make. They need to have a plan. And what I want to see is that it isn't just a plan that is for what we do for the future, but one that takes action now. And that's why we've announced our plan for our high street businesses today.
Look, with the very greatest of respect to you, I'm thinking, I'm just an ordinary bloke, Ms. Malhotra. Honestly, I just am. An ordinary fella from the northwest. And I don't understand what you've said this morning. I don't understand what Labour is putting on the table that's going to make actually a significant and obvious difference to me. I don't know what you say. If you were turning around saying, I'll tell you what the first thing we'd do is sack Andrew Bailey and you put someone in the Bank of England who knows what they're doing, that I could understand. Apart from, I'm not getting what you're selling.
Yes, let's take that on because people in the northwest, as well as across the country, we know are facing the Tory mortgage penalty right now, and that is, an average £3,000 increase in their bills, and much stems back to the instability of the Liz Truss budget. What we have said this week is that there needs to be action taken to support people with their mortgage payments, and I am calling on the Chancellor, the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves called on the Chancellor yesterday to take the action, working with lenders, requiring lenders to make sure people can switch to mortgage interest-only mortgages if they feel that will help them, or lengthen the terms of their repayments, and to take measures without seeing their credit score affected as well, because we need people to have the confidence to be able to talk to their lenders through these tough times. Well, and these are measures that have also been called for by Martin Lewis. But if I can also make a point that I was making earlier in relation to the food price inflation that we're seeing. What we're saying is, with businesses in our local economies, our everyday economy, having to cut back on staff, which reduces income for those who are employed, and let's be clear as well that these businesses are the backbones of our local economies, that we need to have measures that reduces the cost of doing business too. That means making sure that we cut business rates, and we pay for that by more taxes on those online giants that aren't taxed their fair share. That could benefit on average about £2,500 per business, per cafe or pub or restaurant. And what we need to see is that those prices can then come down for consumers to help that little bit with the cost of living crisis, but also keep people in work who are employed in those businesses, and keep the cost of doing business down. There's a cost of doing business crisis along with the cost of living crisis, and the government needs to have a plan for dealing with that.